By the way, are you going to sue Justin Bell, or are you going to sue Blake Lively too?
Into oblivion, Megan. Wait till you see this lawsuit.
Oh boy. Well, for what?
I'm just going to tell you, you're going to have to wait and see. It's coming up soon.
You'll be getting a subpoena soon. I have these excellent new attorneys, and they found possible evidence tampering in my case. Hello, Darren. My fiance's private plane.
Oh, and if you don't come, I'm gonna have to sue you into oblivion for using my name and likeness without my express written consent.
Hey besties, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. I've literally always wanted to start a video with hey besties because you all are my besties. And the weekend was booming over on my Instagram. Are you following me on Instagram? I do a lot of my pre-video coverage related to Miss Lively and Baldoni, Mr. Baldoni, and their case. And I uncover and share clips and videos to give you a sneak peek about what's coming. So check me out on Without a Crystal Ball on Instagram, where you can get a sneak peek. But this weekend was busy because Another Simple Favor came out. Blake Lively was trolling in her new movie, and she apparently added "sue you into oblivion" in post-production. "Sue you into oblivion" actually was said by Mr. Brian Friedman in interviews in December and early January. The post-production of Another Simple Favor finished in late January, meaning she had time to add voiceover audio that he could splice into the movie. And if her mouth wasn't seen and they can cut to it, they can insert her voice to make it look like it was set at the time of filming. And it appears that was done twice, once when it was about a subpoena for evidence tampering or witness tampering, and a second for sue you into oblivion. And if you're wondering, is this really her trolling? I think so, because in her amended complaint, she brought up oblivion twice. It bothered her that much, okay? So in her lawsuit, her amended complaint, she wrote, "On information and belief, all defendants actively participated in this enhanced retaliation campaign. Defendants' counsel threatened numerous lawsuits to sue Miss Lively and others into oblivion, and proceeded to file 4 lawsuits in 3 jurisdictions with fantastical damages of hundreds of millions of dollars in each." And then the second time she mentions it is in paragraph 304 and says, "Defendants have further pursued their public strategy through frivolous litigation designed to create press attention, intimidate others from coming forward, and pressure Miss Lively to give up her claims. Defendants' counsel threatened to file numerous lawsuits to sue Miss Lively and others into oblivion, with intent and effect of intimidating others with information about Wayfarer from speaking up." So you would think that if the phrase "suing you into oblivion" was an intimidating threat being used to silence people, you probably wouldn't put that in your new movie. But that's exactly what Blake Lively did. And it's going to be pretty hard pressed for her to explain that, because we know post-production happened while the lawsuits had been, after the lawsuits have been filed. So they had plenty of time to add that voiceover. So Blake is again proving to the world that she doesn't take the situation seriously, and she's kind of making a mockery of it. But despite the fact that she's been trolling Mr. Baldoni in the new movie, which, by the way, is getting terrible reviews, it's getting really bad scores on Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic, and Letterboxd, with a lot of people saying it's the worst movie they've ever seen. And according to The Independent, who did an article today, Blake does not have any projects lined up. So she has no acting gigs lined up whatsoever. She's not signed on to do any projects at the moment. There's no movie deals. There's no contracts. She's not filming. So this could very well be her last movie for a long time. And The Independent, which is based in the UK, thinks that would be great for her. She just disappeared. But Blake Lively's bestie, Taylor Swift, is now being subpoenaed. And apparently other people are going to get subpoenaed. And it might explain why Travis Kelce unfollowed Ryan Reynolds last week. So according to the Daily Mail, who apparently speaks to basically everyone in this lawsuit, and you have to take with a grain of salt, they can exclusively reveal that Taylor Swift's almost certainly the most powerful woman in show business has been dropped center stage into the whole unsalutatory mess and served with a subpoena by Baldoni's lawyers. My goodness. The subpoena has been issued, compelling her to submit to an interview with Baldoni's Street Fighter lawyer, Brian Friedman, under oath. Never a pleasant experience for anyone. He is one of the most powerful and feared litigators in the entertainment industry. You know, I feel like if you found yourself on the wrong end of a lawsuit where you are the smaller party and you are up against a giant, you would be well represented by Brian Friedman. He is definitely not for everyone, but he seems to find his skill in helping those that are being wronged by big corporations or someone that's in a David Goliath type fight. And his expertise is actually crisis litigation like this, where he handles crisis litigation where celebrities find themselves in scandals. And really what his big expertise is when it comes to crisis litigation is that he uses his mouth in interviews, and he does a lot of the fighting in the public. And so when you think of him as the attorney, yes, he is one of the brains behind all of this litigation, but he's really the public face of this litigation team. And his team, Baldoni and Wayfair's team, is very big. Okay. So he has a firm that's Brian's firm that's in California. And then he has a second firm of litigators that are in New York. So if you hire an attorney that hasn't passed the bar in a specific state, but they are allowed to be in federal court, so they have a federal admission, meaning that they can try cases in federal court, they can do a request to appear in a different state as long as it's in federal court, but they have to find a local attorney in order to do the litigation and actually submitting of the documents and the writing of it. So for that purpose, they have hired the attorneys in New York from the law firm Meester, Sealing, and Fane, PLCC. And if you're familiar, a lot of those documents that are being filed by them are being written by either Mitchell Schuster or Kevin A. Fritz. They also had another attorney that's an entertainment lawyer, Mitra, who comes from the state of California, who also is appearing as an out-of-state attorney in the case. But she was at the actual premiere where she was in the basement with Wayfair. So the attorneys in this case, I think, have done a phenomenal job. They're also not cheap. These are attorneys that charge over $1,000 an hour easily. And on Blake's side, it's the same. There's been a lot of questions about how much are they paying and how much are they spending per month. And with the amount of discovery that this case is doing, and with the amount of witnesses and depositions and the number of filings and the number of defendants, I would guess they're going to be spending millions of dollars. I don't know by month, but by the time this is all said and done, the case and on the attorney's fees is going to be in the tens of millions of dollars that they have spent on this case easily, making the judgments in this case of, seeking 250 or 400 million or whatever it is worth those expenses. So here is the deal. Apparently, Miss Swift, who's been trying to get out of it, got a subpoena last week. And a source told the Mail, Taylor Swift has now been subpoenaed. Some subpoenas are being sent this week. Some depositions are in process now of being scheduled. People often push back and say they can't for various reasons, but you really cannot get out of it. And then they also said they can reveal that her boyfriend, Travis Kelce, will soon receive a subpoena of his own, as will Lively and Reynolds' friend Wolverine star Hugh Jackman. There's been questions about, will Gigi Hadid and Bradley Cooper get subpoenas? And here's what I can tell you about the federal court. Subpoenas are not public record, so that you don't file them in court. You get a request and you get it approved through the judge, but it doesn't become part of the public record. So unless it's attached to a filing as an exhibit, we don't know who's getting subpoenas. We know if someone files, like Marvel has filed, one of Blake's companies filed. So we know that there's people that have been subpoenaed that have received interrogatories or requests for production, but we don't know who else. Leslie Sloan told the court last week that on her initial disclosures that she received from Wayfair, they had listed 150 possible witnesses. That's a lot. Now, it's not going to be that many, but it's a lot of people. And they're going to have to drill that down because that would be a ton of depositions. So if Taylor has to sit for a deposition, and if Travis has to sit for a deposition, that might be telling. I don't know what did Travis know in this, other than like he's became her boyfriend during the filming period. So we all know by now that Taylor Swift was at the Penthouse back before the film started production. It was in the pre-production stage. Lively had invited him over to talk about the script and wanted to run through a pass that she had given to the script on the rooftop scene that she later told someone on the red carpet was written by her husband, Ryan. And at this meeting, Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift were enthusiastically telling him how great the script was and what a great rewrite it was and how he should consider this for his movie. Kind of weird. Now, publicly, Taylor has denied this and said she was invited and she felt like they tricked her into coming and that she only said hi to him because he was the boss. That's a very different account than the one that Mr. Baldoni's legal team put in a complaint alleging that she was very enthusiastic and encouraged Baldoni to consider the rewrites in the script. So what they're going to be doing, apparently, is he's going to want to quiz her about her relationship with Lively and just what she was doing at the Penthouse that night when he summonsed her to discuss the rewrites of the script. And she will be compelled to turn over any emails, texts, or other communication she's had with Lively about Baldoni. She will be asked to give her own account about that meeting, which Baldoni has complained amounted to the start of a series of acts which strong-armed him out of the movie, which he had co-written and was directing and acting in. He actually isn't the co-writer, so that part isn't true, Daily Mail. And they also claim that he will ask, did Lively allege that Baldoni had sexually harassed her? And what exactly did she say had been done, if anything? The source also told the Mail that the case is now progressing through subpoenas and depositions that will carry on over the summer. And they'll say nobody is talking about settling from Blake's side, even though pretty much everyone you talk to says it's obvious that it would be in their interest to settle this damaging fight as quickly as possible. Apparently, Hugh Jackman is also going to be drawn into this fray over the character Nice Pool, and that has to do with the man bun and all of the stuff that they did in that. And Marvel is still trying to get out of that, by the way. Now, it's interesting because the Daily Mail is starting to connect some dots here, too, because they think it's weird that Miss Swift has been pretty silent about what's gone down. Because when Kesha sued and accused Dr. Luke of essaying her, Swift donated $250,000 to Kesha and authorized her spokesperson to make a statement in support of her. And then the music producer denied the accusations, and then they settled the case out of court in 2023. But in this case, she has said nothing to defend her friend. She's offered no public support. None of her PR has said that she supports this in any way. And initially, pro-Lively sources were trying to say that their relationship was on the mend. So she released a statement, like sources connected to Lively issued statements to Us Magazine and People. And they said that Blake knew she and Taylor would come back from this at some point and that their friendship wasn't done for good. Taylor was really hurt by the situation, so she's relieved that they were able to recover from this and put it all behind them because it wasn't something she took lightly. So only a couple days after she tried to spin the narrative that she and Taylor were back on being besties again, suddenly Travis Kelce unfollowed, right? And it looked really bad for them. And so he unfollowed Reynolds, he unfollowed Blake unfollowed him. Reynolds still follows Kelce as of the last time I checked, but I don't know. It felt like there could be some tension here. Now, some people think that this is all just PR and they're just doing this to make it appear like they're not friends. But it sounds like Taylor doesn't, at least the people that the Daily Mail is speaking to, that she doesn't want to be involved in any of this. And Taylor's PR people did put out that statement about when they found out about the subpoena that she didn't want to be involved in this. And then not only have Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift pulled away, but apparently now Gigi Hadid has also. So she had her 30th birthday party and Swift was a guest, but Blake was not there. And Blake was actually, I think, in Wrexham, maybe in the UK, but she's now being shunned by Swift and her friend group. And the gossip columnist Rob Shooter said that the model had to pick between Taylor and Blake and picked Taylor. And that's not a big ask because Gigi and Taylor have been friends much longer than Taylor has ever been friends with Blake. Now, over the weekend, I also got some information from someone about that photographer I spoke to, Richard, who was the paparazzi that they tried to get arrested. He had mentioned that several years before, Blake and Selena Gomez had gotten into a fight, and Blake had said something kind of snarky to Selena. And Selena then warned Taylor about Blake and told Taylor that she didn't think that Blake was there for the right reasons and was just sort of concerned about the way that she had kind of glommed onto her by claiming that her daughters were all her godchildren. And she just felt like it was very opportunistic and she was trying to warn her. So Selena Gomez will not be upset, I guess, if Taylor also cuts ties with Blake. And again, Selena Gomez and Taylor have been friends longer than Blake knew Taylor. And I need to follow up on a story I did last week about all of her PR blunders because another blunder happened on Seth Meyers. I showed you a bit of the clip in my video last week, but she shared a story about her daughter. And in the story, she said that her daughter had the same birthday as Napoleon Bonaparte and Jennifer Lawrence. And then she tried to link it to sun signs. And then she said she didn't know anything about sun signs. And she used the story to say that her daughter was an authoritarian leader that had no problem, saying what she wanted and how she would act, and basically saying she's a tyrant, but she's funny. Mr. Reynolds used the same anecdote about his daughter in a December interview where it was actor on actor for Variety when it was between he and Andrew Garfield. And he said that his daughter had the birthday of Napoleon Bonaparte, but she said it was Napoleon Dynamite, and that he used it to say that she was a tyrant. The problem is that it's not true because none of their kids were born in August. None of them. They have a child that was born in December, one that was born in February, another one that was born at the end of September, and one that was born in the beginning of October. But absolutely none of them were born in August. And interestingly, doing this to a national audience and saying, my daughter's birthday is the same as Napoleon Bonaparte, when you can fact check it and say, oh, he was born on August 15th. Okay, interesting. And you can see, oh, wait, none of her kids were born on August 15th. It's a lie. Now, they could say it's a bit. It's trying to be funny, but she's not trying to do it to be funny. She was asked, does your daughter criticize you? And then she moved into, oh, yes. She has the same birthday as Napoleon Bonaparte. Weird. But Blake admitted that she and her husband lie all the time to the media. And in a Glamour interview in 2017, she was asked about something that her husband had said in a tweet. And the Glamour asked, well, let's talk about writing your own narrative. Ryan's tweets about your family are amazing. One example, my daughter gets so pumped watching Disney films. She loves that they all have singing, dancing, and a part when the parents die. And then she laughs and she said, he may as well work for the Inquirer. When he says my daughter, he's never, ever talking about her. Everything is completely a made up scenario. He'll run them by me sometimes just to make me laugh. But oh, I'm so in love with him when he writes that stuff. I mean, I'm in love with him most of the time, but especially with that. So she admits that they tell stories about their kids that are not true. And she refers to her husband as he may as well work for the National Enquirer, suggesting that stories that are in tabloids are not true. She also was doing a promo for A Simple Favor and admitted on video that she lies directly to journalists' faces because they never fact check her. So using a story about her daughter to call her a tyrant, which is ironic because in that same Glamour interview, she claimed she and Ryan would never call their child bossy because calling a girl bossy is awful. But yet she called her daughter bossy a couple days ago. Either way, when you're in the middle of the lawsuit and your credibility matters, using a story that's not true, that can be easily fact-checked, is something that's not good for her at all. Going to be another example and a statement that she's made publicly that can be used to try to erode her credibility. Because if she's in an interview with Glamour saying that they're willing to lie about their family publicly because they think it's funny, what's to say that they wouldn't lie here because they think it's funny? If you think of it this way, they seem to have a lot of fun when it comes to duping the people that they're after. So if we think of it as the nice pool mocking Baldoni and mocking the claims of sexual harassment in nice pool, and then here in Another Simple Favor, mocking the sue you into oblivion, or Ryan Reynolds standing up before the Saturday Night Live and making a joke about what have you heard about me and my wife in regards to the tabloids and the sexual harassment claims. Making a joke of it, which is not generally what you do. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I do think that Ryan might be a sociopath, maybe even a psychopath. I'm not sure, but he really does get off on lying. He thinks it's funny. He thinks it's funny to pull one over on people. He thinks it's funny that no one will know that he's lying. And I also think both of them lie to protect their egos. So when someone's a narcissist, they can't accept that they're not an amazing human. And so they have to deflect any of their flaws onto someone else. And in this case, they got negative feedback and criticism for their own behavior, and they can't accept that. So they have to blame someone else. And so, in order to do that, they craft these fantastical lies and stories so that they can remain self important in their own eyes. And if you think that they will ever take accountability and say that they're wrong, I would say probably not. I mean, I also cover Cody Brown, who will never admit that he's wrong about anything, literally ever. Narcissists are just, they are their own breed. They're very destructive and they're very hard to have relationships with. And when you are the target of a malignant narcissist, it's horrible. And this is part of the reason why I am so committed to this story, because I've been on the receiving end of a lawsuit by a malignant narcissist twice. And it was probably the worst experience of my life. And it changes you. And when you have the world coming at you believing lies that the narcissist tells, it can feel like you're suffocating, like you have an elephant stomping on your chest and you can't breathe and you're like the size of a mouse. And I imagine very similarly, that's how Justin feels. And a deposition here is going to be interesting because it's under oath. And because narcissists are not known to tell the truth, this is where they can get in trouble. And this is also where they can start to look through some of the discrepancies. And equally, this can be a place where Blake uses her attorneys to abuse Baldoni. So in federal court, you get an opportunity to depose witnesses. But in order to do that, you have to issue a subpoena. And then your subpoena would be that you're seeking to have a request for an oral deposition, oral questioning. And then in that subpoena, you can also seek that they produce documents at the same time. So you can ask them to produce text messages, emails, and such, which just sounds like that's the kind of subpoena that Taylor Swift got. And then what they have to do is they have to organize, how are they going to do the deposition? Are they going to have it be a remote deposition where they do a secured meeting and it's recorded? Or are they going to do it in person? So you can do an in-person or a recorded one. It all depends on the scheduling and how the distance, and if you are in different states. I've done almost all of my depositions remotely through a secured connection that's recorded, and then there's a court reporter there. Once you get into the deposition, they have 7 hours in federal court, so they could take all 7 hours to ask you a lot of questions, a ton. Generally, before you go into a deposition, Baldoni or Lively's sides will provide each side with the documents of evidence that they may be using when they ask questions. And these same documents can be used to then refresh your memory. So if they have a question about a specific contract or a specific email or a specific text, they will generally have all of that available to you so that, and given to you ahead of time so that you can review and be prepared. And being prepared going into a deposition makes it better for you because you spend a lot less time if you cooperate. So cooperating in a deposition is super important, because if you don't, the opposing counsel can just make it painful for you and make you stay. And the opposing counsel can be pretty awful to you too, because when you're sitting in a deposition, it's just you, and then you're getting examined, and then you get examined and cross-examined. And then objections are made, but you have to speak after the objection is made. So there's no judge to rule on an objection. So it's like you're at trial. But in this case, you start with cross-examination generally. So you have the opposing counsel start asking you a bunch of questions, and then your attorneys can then ask questions if they need to clarify, an answer that you gave or provide more context. So if they did a cross-examination and they gotcha on something, your attorney can then redirect and ask questions to try to like clean up the answers that you gave. And then when they object, so say they ask you something super inappropriate, which they can do, by the way, like they could say to Ryan Reynolds, "Is it true that you're gay?" And then his attorneys can say, "Objection, relevance." Ryan, who's under oath, has to answer the question, regardless if it's relevant or not. He still has to answer it. And so then it goes on the recorded record. And then it isn't until the court gets a copy of the transcript and then they fight through the objections that a judge will decide what gets struck from the deposition. So because of that model, this is a place where malignant narcissists can get off on making the person that they're suing have to ask really embarrassing questions. And I would imagine that's exactly what Blake's and Ryan's attorneys are going to do to Baldoni and the Wayfair people. They're going to try to make it and frame it like they're the most horrible humans ever. Now, I'd hope that Baldoni's side doesn't do that, but my guess is that they're going to be able to use previous statements that Blake has made. They can use any of her current public appearances and anything that she has said since filing the lawsuit against her. And so statements she makes on Seth Meyers for lying about her daughter's birthday can certainly be used against her. Is it true that you lied on Seth Meyers? Now, she could say, well, I was just joking. But if you're joking, does that mean you're joking then or joking now? It's a way to sort of poke holes in the credibility of the witness. When you're under oath and you've been sworn to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, you are under the penalty of perjury. It's not just so help you God. It's so help you if you don't tell the truth, you can actually get jail time. If you make a false statement during your deposition that is demonstrably false, it's being made under oath. It's a materially false statement, meaning it's an actual answer to a material issue at hand, and you lie, and then it's willfully, like you know that you lied about it, you can be charged with perjury, which can be up to 5 years in prison and sanctions. You can be fined. So it's very important that you are honest. And perjury in a deposition can severely damage your case because it damages your credibility. So there's no incentive to lie unless you're a narcissist that can't help themselves. So in the case of Taylor Swift, she is under an obligation to tell the truth. Now, some people in depositions can try to sidestep that by saying things, I can't recall, or to the best of my knowledge. They use that a lot to try to get around if something is perjury, or I believe, because a belief can be an opinion. And so a belief could be a lie, but it's under a belief, it's a belief, right? So there's ways to lie without getting charged with perjury, but the more honest you are, the better it is for your case. The worse it is for your case if you lie. And if you don't answer any questions, that can also not look good for your case, because if you're not willing to answer questions, it makes you look like you're hiding something. So being transparent and being truthful and being compliant and not being combative, which can be really hard if you have opposing counsel that's nasty. Trust me, I know. But if you can be as honest as possible and as truthful as possible, it's good. And there's no such thing as pleading the fifth. Someone asked me that on Instagram. Can I plead the fifth? No, you cannot plead the fifth in a civil case. It's not criminal. So there's no hiding behind a Fifth Amendment. Even if you have to be answered about possible criminal conduct, you have to answer it under oath. You could say, I don't recall, but if you say you don't recall, they can show you a document, a text message, a court record, or a contract to try to refresh your memory. There's a million ways to get you to answer the question, and they can rephrase it. So it's in the best interest of everyone to tell the truth. And it makes it for a better experience for you and for the other attorney if they're not there to ask you humiliating questions. So she's not going to be able to get out of it. No, she can fight it and say that she doesn't believe she should be subpoenaed and she shouldn't testify. But because they claim that she has material facts that support their case, it's going to be hard for her to get out of this deposition. And Blake will be deposed, Ryan will be deposed. And the reason why this is bad for a celebrity is because celebrities have public personas that are often lies. They're a smokescreen and they're a PR created, manufactured image that doesn't match the true reality of who someone is. And so for someone that is like Taylor, who's, a pop princess and is trying to be America's sweetheart, anything that doesn't match what an America's sweetheart is could be damaging to her reputation. Like, say they find out she smokes cigarettes, or she does drugs, or she's a swinger, or, just weird things like that, or that she is involved in scheming and bribery, or, threats, coercion, manipulation. She has to answer these kinds of questions about her role in all of this. And so any of that could be damaging to her. And that's why nobody wants to be deposed in this case, because they don't want to be put on record, because it would damage their public image. And because so much of Hollywood is built on smokescreens and PR fakeness, it's one thing to admire a celebrity, but it's another to take everything they say at face value, especially if they have a PR agent. PR agents are there to create an image for you, and you're selling a brand. So they want to protect that brand at all costs, but depositions make them vulnerable. And that's part of the reason why Blake's all, we need an attorney's eyes only. And we might never see the transcripts of these depositions if they'll likely be deemed confidential. So you and I will not be able to get a copy of them. And the only way that we'll see them is if they are marked or cited in a summary judgment or in a future document to the court, or if they go to trial and they actually have to testify. But having to sit through the deposition can be enough for some people to want to settle because they don't want to be put under oath. A lot of these subpoenas right now are strategic, I'm assuming, because they want to pressure them. And as much pressure as they can put on them, the better. And so if you start pressuring them by subpoenaing all of their celebrity friends, it might want them to settle. But now her friends are saying, well, no, her sources are saying she's not going to settle. So then they have to ask themselves, the friends, do I want to be with someone that's willing to put me through this because she brought false charges of sexual harassment? And what if what Taylor knows is that it's all fake? She has to answer that under oath. So I think this is all going to put a lot of pressure on Ryan and Blake to really start to think about what they're going to do. And I don't know at what point they're going to fold. I know they will. I believe that Blake's team is going to fold before Justin and Wayfair, because Justin and Wayfair have a lot more to lose by settling. Blake and Ryan have a lot less to lose by settling because they haven't been accused of sexual harassment. So a lot of this is strategically done to promote settlement. Although Brian Friedman says they don't want to settle and they're saying they don't want to settle, it could very well end up in settlement, just to be clear. So what are your thoughts about all of this? The lies, the deception, the depositions, the smoke and mirrors. Do you think they're going to get the nitty gritty? Is there something in there that's going to be very damaging? Do you think Taylor knows something that Blake doesn't want out there? Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, guys.